guys, as promised, here's the second versus SkyToss match that I was talking about in the previous cast. This one, opponent goes something a lot more interesting than just Mass Void Ray, so it's a pretty cool game. This is when I started to actually get really pumped for the changes that have been made recently. Although, I gotta say, when I was playing it, I was feeling pretty hopeless. We'll see later on as the game starts to really get going that there's going to be some tweaking needed on Blizzard's part. Now that this is viable, everything is kind of swung, because Protoss was in kind of rough shape. I don't know if they were necessarily completely underpowered, but seemed like they were definitely having some trouble. They pretty much had to go Immortal Sentry onto a third. So it's good that they addressed that, but now it's going to be kind of one of those things where they're going to need to be gradually tweaking the Hydra and the Corruptor to give us viable anti-air, because this new caliber of air is just a whole different machine. So this will probably be the last versus Protoss I cast for a little bit, just because I did so many ZVPs back in the day, and my opening build isn't changed at all, so I get really bored casting, hey look, it's another 11 overpool. But yeah, once the game actually gets going, it'll be fun. So, not a lot else going on right now. I suppose I haven't really talked about, for anyone who followed me back in the day, these days I'm living out in Ohio, and I'm working at it's hard to describe without getting too specific. Basically, we make software for hospitals, and I'm a trainer for that, so it's pretty cool. Eventually, once my training's done, I get to travel a bunch and stuff like that, so I'm looking forward to that. Other than that, it's nothing too terribly exciting. Sarah and I aren't together anymore, so that's kind of a bummer, but that's okay. That means I have more time for this. So, other than that, pretty dull. You know the drill. So, alright, so nothing much going on so far. We're getting up to just taking the nat. I'm still sticking to 4 lings. Probably will for quite a while, just until I get the feel for what people's timings are now. I feel like just having the opportunity to once in a while take advantage of them trying to sneak past the Forge tech and just go straight into Mothership Core is pretty good, because you're going to get plenty of free damage for a bit while they're waiting for that Mothership Core. Coming up here, if I remember right, this is the game where I do get in a little bit, but I make a few wrong decisions here. We'll see what happens. So yeah, he gets the wall up, but Zerglings are going to do plenty of damage to that pylon, especially since it was still under construction. So I'm able to get in, he gets the cannon up, but not in time before I actually am able to get the lings in. Now here I'm a little indecisive. In hindsight, I don't know why I wanted to break that. I guess I've done too many of the roachling all-ins back in the day and that sort of thing, where keeping the wall broken is first priority. But really what I should have been doing is running up the ramp. I should have been already, when this cannon was at halfway, already been running up the ramp, and unless he already had him blocked ahead of time, I would have been in good shape. Mistake number 2 is trying to run by this cannon when it's finished. I knew better than that. I could have denied mining at that natural for quite a long while. But, well, live and learn. Pretty rusty these days, so some of my decision making especially has been impacted. I'll get that production tab up for you guys. Alright, so hitting a decent transfer. Still kind of preferring to not really transfer any heavier than I need to and then just rally. I could have actually done a little more, but with the extractors going down, it's going to pull off of that anyways. So I'll be under 16 pretty quick here. Then after that, just rally everything over. I think this is a game where I go ahead and stick on the 2 base, which is more my standard than what we saw last game. I really do prefer that. The trick is you can't be hitting supply blocks, and we'll probably notice 1 or 2. You know how it is, my supply blocks are my worst issue. But if you stay on 2 base and you do keep the supply cap clean, you're actually going to be able to be ahead on drones with 11 overpool 2 base versus 3 base, like a 14 or 15 pool. You're behind Hatch First, but Hatch First is never worth the risk. Cannon Rush is still too good. So I mean, that's pretty cool. Your mining isn't necessarily better, but you have more drones, which means when your third goes up, you hit a much stronger transfer. So I would say the mining's not quite as good because you're losing efficiency for those drones after 16, but still it's pretty solid. So for my opponent, we'll spend a little bit of time talking about what they've got going on. Getting out that mothership core, pretty good timing on that. He didn't complete the wall. I think he probably read my build pretty well. Realized that, you know, when I traded away the links and traded them poorly, that it wasn't actually going to be any kind of all-in. A lot of people are overreacting right now with the 4 links, thinking it's an all-in, trying to kill him before the core comes out. But other than that, pretty straightforward from him as well. Just see the Twilight Council coming up, and that doesn't give us too much information yet, since so many people now are going Dark Templar, so we really can't say for certain that that's Blink. Before this, you know, Dark Shrine buff, where they dropped the gas cost down to 100, no one was really rushing Dark Templar anymore, unless it was you know, some kind of best of 5 and they were trying to metagame somebody. But I think that's going to come back in a big way. So Infestation Pit dropping immediately. This is just a good, safe way to go. Overseer at 8.5 minutes. This is going to catch any critical tech. I see right as Blink is starting, so that's really comfortable for me. This allows me to feel a lot safer with my decision to go ahead and you know, push out into Swarm Host. He's just kind of playing around with the Mothership Core. This is just kind of a risk-free choice on his part. He knows there's not going to be anything that shoots up other than my queens, which he can go ahead and pull away from. So it's kind of a might as well for him, I guess. At least I think that was probably the logic. On my end, since I did see that he was already getting the Twilight Council, I wanted to just kind of be safe, make sure I had something for detection. You know, spores, more and more I'm starting to feel like it's one of those where I'd rather pay the minerals and pay the drones early than later on, you know, lose the entire game because of it. Initial Swarm Host pop, honestly, given what I saw, I maybe would have been better off to go ahead and push these across the map and start some pressure. He wasn't Stargate yet. At least I hadn't you know, seen anything. I saw enough tech that I could be pretty sure that he wasn't. So really, these should be over on his side of the map. I'm going to be able to kite away if he pushes out with anything. Blink Stalkers can catch, but I'd say it's, you know, as long as you're watching your Swarm Host, you're not really going to have that problem. So this was a case of me playing a little too passive, and in hindsight, you know, when we see how this game plays out later on, I think this is probably a point where I could have at least prevented this third from going up. Still kind of was getting the hang of what my timings need to be with Swarm Host, whether I need to build up a, you know, critical mass, or whether 6 is enough. I would say anything less than 6 definitely isn't enough. But you know, live and learn. Just have to keep working on that. So the other thing that I'm starting to work on is my upgrade timing. Notice I still am not starting upgrades, and the more games I played after, you know, this one, the more I started to realize that locusts really fall off if they get a upgrade disadvantage. It's one of those things where you need them, especially on the attack damage. You need them to be able to go ahead and one-shot. Otherwise, you're going to find cases where they'll, you know, soak up at one shot from the stalker, or on a stalker. They'll blink back. They won't take any armor damage, and you haven't really made any progress. The other thing is versus Terran. It's really critical that you keep those upgrades going, because Marines actually can mow down locusts so fast, and since they're only 3 range, they'll actually go ahead and kill your locusts before they'll do any damage. So you got to keep that. Actually, in the case of ZVT, the armor upgrade is by far the more important of the two. It is good that you'll be able to, you know, get some attack damage and out-damage their medevacs, but if the locusts are dying before they even get in range, it's not going to do any good. So at this stage, I don't think I actually saw the Stargate. I didn't. So where was that? Oh, it's right there. I just wasn't active enough with my Overseer. But by the time I see these, you know, Phoenix, I know that I'm going to need to switch out from Swarm Host pretty soon. Still would have liked to have seen these Swarm Hosts across the map. Can't stress that enough, that these need to be aggressive early on, especially if you're going to go a build like I was, where you're grabbing them early. That's just bad. I should have hit that transfuse earlier. I think I was watching elsewhere, if I remember right. This one didn't have another transfuse, and that one just got in range when he died. So hitting that first transfuse would have prevented both queens from dying realistically, because then the remainder of my queens would have gotten in range. Rushed out the Vipers. They're popping nice and early. It's good, but it was kind of unfortunate for me that he then moved right into Phoenix, because until the Hydras are out, there's not going to be much those Vipers can do. I think, again, if there's one thing here that was an issue, it's that I was way too passive. I kind of was of the mindset, playing this out, that I hadn't yet really seen anything that shut down Swarm Host Hydra Viper. I just had yet to ever experience a late game situation where I couldn't deal with it. And so this was a really cool game, though, because I got to finally see what Protoss late game really feels like. There's a nice grab. So yeah, we're going to see as this goes on that there's actually a point where I think Zerg kind of falls off right now. And the issue with that is we have no tier 3 that shoots up. So we got Broodlords and Ultralisks, and with air now being phenomenal for Protoss, that means we're stuck at tier 2 for our units that counter their air, which means we're generally working with a resource efficiency issue, just because of how the tiers work in the first place. Just kind of from a fundamental level, it's just going to be part of their design that the higher tier, the more efficient it is. And I think we see that to an even greater degree. A couple more good grabs there. See that to an even greater degree when we consider that the Hydralisk has just been this unit that's waffled for all this time, where Blizzard just hasn't really known what to do with it, and they've kind of bounced around as far as ideas that they want to do, want to put into place, from plus range to switching it over to something more Brood Wars, but nothing has ever actually been implemented, and I think we're really going to start to feel that with this stronger air, because we're going to need to depend on Hydras more than ever. Corruptors aren't really viable versus Protoss air with the new Void Ray, and that's where I think maybe a redesign on the Corruptor may be necessary too, because the biggest thing we were using Corruptors for previously were shooting down Colossus, and Vipers do that so much better, it's not even funny. And now that carriers are good, then that'd be kind of cool if we could shoot down carriers with them, but with the Void Ray just so efficient versus Corruptors, I don't think there's even going to be a justification there. So, also kind of passive here, trying to apply pressure in the natural, but I'm too far away here. This is one of those where I just got to kind of get the hang of what my range is. Ideally I maybe should have been pressuring the bottom with my Swarm Hosts and the natural with my Hydras, just because the Swarm Host can access down here. This engagement, actually I should have been covering that, sorry. Go back a little bit so we can actually see what's going on here. Yeah, so we've got my Vipers, which I was not watching at the time. That's really bad. Lost one Viper for free, lost another one after getting one cast off. Not so good. And we've got the entirety of his army here, while my Swarm Hosts are doing minimal damage due to the range issue. So that's something that just, as Zerg players get more and more experience, they're going to learn to eyeball these things. Because had these Swarm Hosts been up around here, his entire natural would have lost its wall off. Get a little bit of a catch here with my Swarm Host. This is decent. Definitely doesn't make up for the losses I just took, but it's a step in the right direction. We're seeing here that I'm, 50 supply ahead, now only 30 supply ahead, but I'm keeping a decent supply lead. It's just his composition is just so robust, and there's not that many units. It's just carriers are really good now. Tempest also really, really good, just because they're so damn hard to kill due to the range advantage they provide. And then High Templar are just the perfect support for that, because if you want to engage their Tempest, you're going to have to run into Storm. There's just no way around it. Both Tempest and Carrier are going to force your Hydras to actually just kind of run through the Storm and take the hits and try and trade. Vipers, they would deal with that really well, and I think there is eventually going to be a case where it really comes down to who's got the, it's going to be a lot like Ghost versus High Templar, who hits the feedback versus who hits the MP, which is really kind of a good dynamic to add to ZVP, but for the time being, I don't necessarily feel like the Vipers really get it done, because they hit the Abduct and I guess it's just because it's kind of like Infestor Neural Parasite. You've got one that actually needs to travel to the target and one that's instant. So they hit the feedback, and by the time the feedback's been hit, the abduct, I don't know how that actually is going to manage, but I suspect that's the issue. When, similar to how Neural Parasite was, if the feedback hits before the Neural Parasite, then you're out of luck. But we'll see. I mean, maybe there's no mechanic where the Infestor, like the Infestor has to stay alive to retain control. But with Abduct, who knows if the Viper has to stay alive for the Abduct to actually occur, if it's already been cast. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. We'll see what happens, but I do know I don't like seeing my very expensive Vipers just instantly explode. Now here, I don't really know if the swarm hosts are really doing much for me. The logic, from my point of view, get a couple good grabs there, get a carrier and a Viper, but I did have to or a carrier and a Tempest, but I did have to trade away 2 Vipers for it. Still, it is a winning trade. I mean, you look at the resource cost on both the carrier and the Viper, and it's around God, why do I keep calling Tempest Viper? The carrier and the Tempest, and you are still profiting off that. It's just, obviously it'd be better to keep them. This is good for Banjo, dropping all of his minerals in charge lots. It's really not, an issue that he, isn't going to take out this hatchery. It's really just buying him time, because I did have some tempo that was starting to establish with those swarm hosts. And because I had to retreat the Hydras, I had to also pull back the swarm hosts. Kind of a safety first thing. I'm hoping eventually I'm going to get good enough at multitasking my swarm hosts that I can do something like run back, kill the zealots while transfusing my hatcheries and still be bouncing my swarm hosts around doing damage. But every time I've tried to pull that off, it's gone horribly wrong, and I give away all my hosts. So for the time being, I'm not really worrying about that. Eventually, I start to kind of catch on that. Nice one shot there. Eventually, I start to kind of catch on that he's starting to build up to max, and he's got kind of a critical mass of just pure tier 3, which means in a direct engagement I'm out of luck. So my only hope is really to shut down the economy in one way or the other, which that 4th seems to be the best choice since it has the freshest mining. So I get the detection, which is great. I think that's going to be kind of the key. Bunch of grabs there, but actually this is something really important to take note of. This just was really poorly handled on my part, and this is just me not being used to Abduct. So I get the detection, that's great. He's going to have to storm if he wants to kill these swarm hosts, so that's going to occupy him. But then I go ahead and get the grab on like 5 carriers, and then instead of focus firing the carriers like I should have been, like right here, there's no excuse for me to not just shift right click all the carriers. Instead, I recognize he's going to go ahead and storm me, so I go ahead and say, well, crap, I got really fast Hydras, let's go ahead and dodge the storm, and that doesn't work out well. So, I mean, best of intentions in the world, but I think in this situation, I should have just, capitalized on the Abduct and made it work for me. So, hindsight's 20/20, but this trade was horrible because I cleaned out all of his ground and left the 5 carriers alive, which was what really needed to go. My swarm hosts are going to keep anything ground dealt with, and so really it's just making sure he doesn't continue to build up mass on those carriers. This I thought was kind of cool. I was kind of happy once I recognized he was not Robo. He was depending entirely on Mothership Core for his detection. It is kind of cool that I can go ahead and just pin him down like this. Had there been a few more swarm hosts, I could have definitely actually done some reliable damage rather than just pinning his carriers. But still pretty cool. Hydras go ahead and go in for the Nat. I think it's pretty solid decision. Just because I don't necessarily at this time know if he's got a lot of high Templar waiting down there when he starts to engage the swarm host. Turns out I don't believe he would have, but yeah, he wouldn't have. So yeah, Hydra's nice and fast. They're able to do quite a bit of harass now, which is great. They're able to get out of storms sort of well, but in this case, this was kind of another case where I really think I just had the wrong thing in mind. You know, these didn't trade horribly. I got all of his High Templar and I got 3 carriers, but really what I should have been doing is splitting my armies, treated these like roaches. I'm still thinking of Hydras as a low mobility unit where, you know, they get into range of you, it's time you go ahead and trade them away and remax. It's not like that with Hydras anymore. What you should be doing, and what I should have done, is treated it just like a roach push and grab maybe half to 3/4 of my Hydras, put them up in his main, take out all of his gateways, take out the stargates that were there that I hadn't seen yet. The other remaining third or so then goes ahead and soaks up some storms, keeps the carriers occupied. I shut down that production for even just a minute or two while he gets it reestablished, and now all of a sudden I'm able to keep things going. But, I mean, this just really is a testament to how much better the carrier is now. I guess I haven't really talked about what was done to make the carrier so amazing. And he's actually not really microing it the way that, we're going to start seeing when the pros start getting their hands on this. And the way that we saw White Raw a little bit. But what it is carriers no longer retract their interceptors when you give them a move command. And that one little change was all it took. Like, if that change would have been implemented in Wings of Liberty beta, we would have seen carriers used in professional play for years. Because what it means is you can go ahead and launch the interceptors, kite around, and still be doing DPS, which makes the carrier capable of moving and attacking at the same time without so much as a scoot and shoot. So, I mean, it's such a huge change. There's right now no other unit that can do it. Think of it kind of like a flying. What were those things in the campaign? I can't remember. They got the rail guns. Oh, that's going to drive me nuts. Well, I'll remember it right after the cast. But yeah, think of it like those things. I'm sure you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Except for you've got that much more hit points to work with too in the process of kiting, and you've got a flying unit. So. Yeah, carriers, they're going to be a new staple, I would say, for late-game Protoss, and that's so good to see. To think just, 3 months ago, they were removed from the game. So it's kind of cool that Blizzard actually listened to that, because they were really adamant there when they were removed, and then the internet got mad. So now we finally see things that are worthwhile out of carriers, so that's good. So I'm really stuck on Hydra here, and that's kind of what I wanted to mention is I don't really, feel free to fire out ideas in the comments. I don't really know in this situation where I've got an opponent who has plenty of carriers, has plenty of Stargates to switch into Void Ray if I make Corruptors. I can't even turn them into Broodlords for much of any benefit unless I just want to try and snipe his High Templar. So I guess my thought is, well, what the hell do I do at this point? Because my Hydras are clearly not cutting it. But I need something that's going to deal with those carriers. If it weren't for feedback, I would like Queens, to buffer for those Hydras. But, with feedback in play, then that's just an instant kill for the Hydras. So, I don't know. This is just kind of something to think about. I felt like there was definitely some missteps with the micro, but the composition was about what it needs to be for Heart of the Swarm right now. And I was kind of thinking if they were to just, now that the Protoss air is a little better, maybe just give Hydra something a little different working for it. Maybe a different ground attack from air, a longer range air attack or something. I mean, that might make them too much like a Queen, I don't know, but I do know if my Hydras were, firing from 8 range or 9 range with lower DPS with the same versus ground attack that they already have, I think that would be a lot more comfortable versus this kind of composition, because, this is just, if I were to, this is the kind of thing that someone's going to probably post on the forums when it happens to them and go, oh my god, it's unbeatable, and everyone's just going to respond, don't let them make that happen. Don't let them get there. And I think that's probably the easiest solution for now, absolutely. Had I been applying more pressure with the swarm hosts, this would have never happened, and certainly had I made better trades. But I still think it's just so cool that this is viable. just, just a bit ago in Wings of Liberty, this would have been absolutely mauled. There just wouldn't have even been a chance, and then we got to see a little bit of the carrier micro there at the end. Like, for example, even this one back here is still actually doing DPS out there, so that's pretty cool. So, yeah, that's about it. I thought this one was really fun just because it's a composition that we've probably never seen played in any serious fashion. It's always something, at best, someone throws in a game when they've already won, kind of showing off in a best-of series. But, yeah, so I guess the moral of the story is SkyToss is very viable. Carrier High Templar is very viable. I can't wait to see what starts really coming out of this and where Blizzard takes their further balance decisions. They've already said they want to keep working with Hydra, and Corruptor's been kind of tossed around as an idea, but they still haven't actually addressed anything. But yeah, I think this leaves a lot of room for a much more dynamic ZVP, so I'm really pumped. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. I'll try and probably grab some ZVT next. Just got to make sure I get some good games in. So, alright, have a good one.